Welcome to Prime Life. We call it Retirement 2.0. Leave each episode with tips and new ideas to help you navigate retirement in our new age. It's your time. Make it count.
Welcome back to the Prime Life Podcast, where we explore the ideas, innovations, and people shaping the future of longevity. I'm Mary Crean. Today we're launching our Women of Nassau series, a conversation about how women navigate money, career, identity, and planning through every stage of life. Retirement isn't a finish line. It's shaped by the choices and habits we build along the way. Throughout this series, we'll hear from women at different stages of life and explore how their experiences influence financial well-being, long-term planning, and the future they envision. I'm delighted to be joined by guest co-hosts Brittney McKenzie and Virginia Harvey, two Nassau leaders and active members of the Women of Nassau, an employee resource group dedicated to empowering women through connection, mentorship, wellness, and leadership. Brittney, let's start with you. I'd like to say that she's the AVP and Head of Contracting and Strategic Sourcing at Nassau Financial Group. A wife, mother, leader, and mentor, she brings both professional expertise and personal perspective to conversations about financial well-being and planning for the future. Virginia Harvey works in technology at Nassau Financial Group. A wife, mother, entrepreneur, and Connecticut-based DJ, she brings a fresh perspective on balancing life's many roles while thinking about the road to retirement. Ladies, welcome to the Prime Life Podcast. I'm super excited to have you. Brittney, tell our audience a little bit more about yourself.
So my career here at Nassau has been quite interesting. I've kind of climbed up pretty quickly, gone through a few different roles so far here in my time. And my free time, I like to dedicate to the women that are here, giving back to them, creating opportunities for networking and just potential. I am a mom of two, and I spend a lot of my free time with my little ones.
And Virginia, how about you?
Through my DJ services. So it's a very exciting time and love that we're here on the podcast.
Well, thank you both for joining me again. Let's get started. First question, how would you describe the stages of life you're in right now? Let's go over to Brittney first. And again, ladies, if we talk over each other a little bit, it's okay. And we'll go back and forth and add any context that you wish.
Thanks, Mary. So right now I'm in a stage of my life where I'm balancing a lot of things at once, building my career, raising a family, and then also trying to be really intentional about creating stability for my future. I'm currently 34, so retirement doesn't really seem that close, but I think I'm becoming more and more aware of the decisions that I'm making today, which will essentially lay the foundation for whatever my future might look like. My season of my life is very busy, like many others, including Virginia, just balancing the needs of today and just learning how to be more intentional with the time that I have.
Virginia, how about you?
Yeah, so I think if I had to dub a life stage name for myself, it would be the Doomsday Prepper. And the reason why I say that is, when you think about a doomsday prepper, they're ready for anything. The apocalypse is coming and they're doing all that they can to hoard food and all that good stuff. And I'm trying to hoard money, we'll say, in a sense, since my retirement horizon is a little bit closer in sight. If I play my cards right, 18 to 19 years or so. So you do the math on where I might be in life. That being said, I think I'm doing everything I can, but I still feel that there are days that I could be making better decisions for myself and my family to set ourselves up for financial freedom when it does come time for retirement. So again, I think I'm in my head a bit, but I do my best to try to make those efforts and initiatives to put myself through that clear horizon of road to retirement.
I'm so excited that we're able to have a conversation with both of you women at the stages that you are in your life, because as the saying goes, it's never too early to save for retirement. A little bit here, a little bit there. I know that we're stretched in a lot of different ways to pay our essential bills, let's just say, right? All the children's activities, but also, where we live, our taxes, our food and shelter and all those good things. So yes, we have those things. And as I shared with you ladies, I'm at a different stage of my life. I'm one of those individuals where I'm catching up. I spent my earlier years being an entrepreneur and trying to catch up on maybe some lapses that I'm experiencing. Let's talk about, what does retirement look like for you today?
Virginia, you want to take that one first?
Yes. So like I was saying, as I prep for that future state, I am trying to explore resources and look for ways to understand financial literacy. So again, obviously, when you begin your career, you know some of the basics and you understand that you should always look into obtaining a 401k from your employer. And there's some great benefits to that, of course. And most employers match to whatever you're contributing to. But then as time has gone by and where I'm at now, I realize I need to continue to diversify what those funds may look like in the future state. So rather than just sticking to only one single type of contribution, I've learned by reaching out to peers and reading articles, and some of the influencers out there even have piqued my interest. And I have explored financial literacy on my own. And I think that's important that as women, we empower ourselves to do that, because certainly I think most of the general population, they're not taught these things. We're taught geometry in school, of course, and algebra, but financial literacy is something completely different. And therefore, if you're not taking those steps to understand what that may look like for you, you might be doing yourself an injustice. And speaking of injustices for women, of course, we know that our peers experience that more frequently than our male counterparts, especially when it comes to having financial freedom. And therefore, I think, again, it's just so important to empower yourself to go out there and find some answers. So that's what I've been doing recently.
Before we go to Brittney, we've had guests on Prime Life Podcast who have talked about the differences for men and women. And women sometimes, not always being the primary caregivers to our children or to parents or relatives that we have to take care of who need us. Also, in some cases, women have had to delay some of their education postgraduate or upward mobility in their careers, again, because of family situations. And so and I'm glad you brought that up, as women, I think we need to look at saving for retirement, perhaps a little bit different, not 100%, but I think that's a really great point that you make. Brittney, how about you?
Honestly, retirement is more abstract for me. I don't have a picture in my mind or a specific age or even a clear finish line. I don't necessarily envision myself completely stopping work, especially at this point in my life. I think I kind of see retirement more as a transition into a new chapter, and it will give me more flexibility and freedom, but maybe continuing to work and follow my passions. I think right now for me, my focus is more on building a life that eventually will give me those choices. And I think that's what retirement means to me, not necessarily stopping, but having the ability to decide how I want to spend my time and what I want to do with my free time.
Yeah, no, I love that answer, because really financial freedom allows us to do that. And someone who has two grown adults, my husband and I chose to heavily invest in our two grown adults. They were kids at the time, in their education, because we knew that we wanted to have a better life for them. And when you are exposed to different people and educational concepts, you can see the different options that maybe you didn't know. The saying goes, and it's cliche, but you don't know what you don't know. And so I think What I really want to stress, at least from my point of view, is retirement or saving for retirement is a very individual concept. My husband and I have been married for a long time. He's a little bit older than me, and we both joke and say we're going to keep working until they kick us out because that's what we want. We may, move into a different career, although we've done that many times ourselves. And those of you that know me know that I've done a lot of different things in my life. I've stepped up to bat and said, okay, let's give it a shot. But I think, again, it's a very individualized decision depending on where you are, depending on your family circumstances. So let's start with Brittney this time. Brittney, did your life follow the path so far that you expected? And if not, what has surprised you the most?
And we'll get that answer after a brief word from our commercial sponsors.
Nassau is always working harder to be your carrier of choice. We offer insurance products that can help you meet your retirement goals, such as protecting your savings, securing lifetime income, or paying for healthcare costs. We're dedicated to providing best-in-class service and are keeping things simple, and we'll have your back. We have around 400,000 policyholders and contract holders and have been doing this for a long time, 170 years, but we remain humble enough to always try to improve. For more information, visit nfg.com. Nassau insurance products are issued by Nassau Life and Annuity Company of Hartford, Connecticut, Nassau Life Insurance Company, East Greenbush, New York, or Nassau Life Insurance Company of Kansas, Overland Park, Kansas. Subsidiaries of Nassau Financial Group. Products are not available in all areas. Policyholder counts are for all Nassau companies as of September 30th, 2022, and are subject to change.
I would say it has not followed the path that I expected. I had a bit more of a unique dynamic. I started off working right after high school while I was attending college, and then eventually I left school to just work full time. And I was kind of finding myself at that point. What do I want to do? What does my future look like? I had no idea. I met my husband and became a mom at the age of 24. And then I returned to school while I was raising children and working full time. And I was still kind of determining what that path was going to look like. I finally found my way, obviously, now that I'm here. But looking back, I think that it's not very linear, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be a straight and narrow path. Sometimes the detours have been my biggest blessings. And so I think that's what surprised me the most, that the things I would have thought of as challenges really were what I needed to get to where I am.
I love that response. How about you, Virginia?
Yeah, there's a saying that I love, and it goes something like this: you are where you are because that's where you need to be.
Yeah.
And when it's time to move on, you'll move on. And it really resonated with me. I think you're right, Brittney, in terms of life being linear. What is that? We can certainly try to have some goals and have something to strive for in life. And certainly I think I did initially, when I was younger, I said, I'm going to go to New York City. I'm going to go to school there. I'm going to get a marketing job there. And I had this whole grand plan, right?
Yeah.
And it didn't quite work out that way. First step, of course, was to have a continued education. So I am a first generation in my immediate family to have done that. That comes with challenges, as the idea of going to college in my family didn't hold as much value because previous generations, and I'm very young, by the way, compared to the rest of my family, did very differently. And it was not the same for them in their time when my parents were younger. And therefore, I had to do this on my own. And I lost a parent at a very young age. I was 16 years old. So that also kind of threw a loop for myself. And so early on, I realized I'm kind of on my own. I got to figure this out. But I know I want to go to an educated institution and higher learning. And I had done that, but it came with challenges to stay there, right? So of course, college is very expensive, and it's only grown even further now in cost. But I was able to complete my 2 years, and then I went to work, and I did land some roles that I thought were suitable for degree at the time, which was in marketing. And then I went back to school, as Brittney did while she was an adult. I had a child already at that point, and I continued my education there. And I will say, I think at that stage in your life, you look at things differently. Your perspectives change and you're able to navigate through that higher education differently and maybe sometimes better in a sense, just because your viewpoint is very different from when you were much younger. So I was in my 30s at that point. But nonetheless, it all sort of worked out. And I've been at various organizations, companies where I leveraged that marketing background. And then I pivoted and I have a supporting role within the finance area of technology and thriving and really enjoying it. So you just never know where the road is going to take you. And that's okay, as long as you're ready and willing and keeping an open mind about that.
So what I'm hearing is resilience, persistence. And interestingly enough, even though I'm of a different generation, we all have a lot in common. My road has been very much a zigzag. I also was a first generation in my family to go to college. And that was absolutely a challenge to pay for it as well. And so there were some ebbs and flows. I actually got my MBA much, much later. I wanted to make sure my children, their education was covered and paid for and all of that. And I remember when I made that decision to go back to school, and I was also working full time, there were many naysayers and said, oh, it's going to be hard for you to work full time and go back to school. I said, yes, I'm sure it will be, but I have to do it. This is my path. And I wanted something better than perhaps I had seen within my family, from a wonderful family, don't get me wrong, but I was hoping to strive for greater financial freedom and also just continue the curiosity that it sounds like is within all of us, being that lifelong learner, and also, again, being willing to pivot in your career. I always say that because I'm more of this generation, I've reinvented myself more than Madonna has. That's kind of what I like to say, tongue in cheek. So how do you think the stage of the life that you're in is influencing the way you think about retirement and financial planning? And I think we've covered a little bit of that, but is there any kind of final point that you want to make before we go to our final question?
Brittney, I'll let you chime in on that one first.
Sure. So when you're younger, retirement obviously feels distant. It's something that you don't necessarily think of or plan for. And then when you're raising children and managing the day-to-day, it's almost impossible to prioritize that in some sense. I think as you get to the later stages in your life, you start to think of it more and more. And then there might be that moment when you hit where Virginia's at and you start prepping and it's at the front of your mind. And so I think depending on what stage you are in life, it certainly does influence how you think about retirement and the way you look at it. Retirement planning isn't something that just suddenly starts later in life. I think it's really a series of habits and decisions that you develop over time, and something that we need to get better at teaching younger folks about thinking about earlier on, because it really isn't something you should just wait till it's in your line of sight to think about and plan for.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you're absolutely right, because also longevity risk, we talk about that all the time. We don't know how long we're going to be here. I mean, we hope that we will have the good grace and the good luck to grow old. Not everyone has that, but I think, planning along the way makes a lot of sense. How about you, Virg? What's your take on this?
I mean, to your point, Mary, nobody is promised tomorrow, right? So take those steps to enjoy every moment, every day with your family and friends. And of course, when you're saving or trying to think future state self, right? Investing in yourself is where it's at. And it's not just a monetary sort of notion. It's ensuring that your wellness overall, your health, all of that is there. And of course, the money aspect of it comes into play to enable you to have that enrichment in life. So I feel like money and rich, right? That kind of goes hand in hand when you say that. But it's more about the enrichment. Having the resources at that point in time will allow you to have those meaningful connections with the ones that you love. And that's really, for me, what it comes down to. Today is a grind. Every day it's like the alarm goes off, get out of bed, walk the dog, do this, do that, get the kid to school. I'd like to take a step back one day and just stop and, as they say, smell the roses. I don't have time to do that right now. But having those resources, again, gives you the enrichment in life that everybody needs. We all need that human connection. I very much look forward to that one day and spending more quality time with those that I do love. of, and I'm trying to stay as healthy as possible to enjoy those golden years, as they say.
I love that you brought that into the conversation, staying healthy, because again, we can't control everything, but one of the things we can is do our best to exercise, eat a reasonable diet, etc. I do think taking care of yourself is key, and it should, I believe, start at the youngest age. So as we get to the end of our conversation, looking back, what's one lesson that you've learned that you wish you knew when you were just starting into adulthood, whether it's when you had your children or when you met that Mr. Right in this case, or when you started school? Like, what do you wish you knew that you can impart today? And let's go back to Brittney.
I think if I were to look back and maybe even give my younger self a little bit of advice, I would probably want to know that my path wouldn't need to look like others to be considered the right path. A lot of times we compare ourselves to others, and in doing that, it takes away from recognizing our own accomplishments and knowing that what we've done and where we're at in life is where we should be. So I think I would have loved to know that when I was younger. It doesn't need to be that straight line. It doesn't need to look like your classmates or your friends or your peers. Like, whatever path is meant to be yours is yours. And look where I am now. And so I think that would be the lesson that I've learned, and something I would have wanted to give my own younger self some advice on.
That's great. How about you, Virg?
Yeah, we're on the same page. Brittney, I literally wrote this down. No one size fits all. Just know that everybody is unique. Everybody's experience, they're just going to be different, and that's okay. You don't have to fit in that mold. Sometimes I think we're kind of taught that, no, you have to do it this way or that way. And of course, I've taken advice from others when I was younger too, to do something a certain way. And when it comes down to it, you just have to do what's right for you in that moment, and then thinking future state. We don't always think that far out in advance. So sometimes it's just one day at a time. But that being said, give yourself grace. If you feel that you, quote unquote, failed at something, think of it as a learning opportunity. Fail could mean first attempt in learning. That's what I always kind of tell myself, an acronym. But just invest in yourself. Invest in yourself, not just in retirement, but in yourself, as in, how can I grow? How can I feel enriched again? I love to say that, because that's really what it comes down to, is feeling those connections among those family and friends. So don't be too hard on yourself. You'll get there. And in time, you'll have found your way.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's definitely well said. And I think that with social media, we tend to compare ourselves with others, and we think, oh, that person's doing this. That looks really great. I'm not able to spend money on that right now because I've got to put it toward my family and my kids. Or that person just got a big promotion. Why haven't I gotten that promotion yet? Or whatever that is. I think it's about looking at your own path and being satisfied. And I love to talk about positivity, as you both know. And I think keeping a positive mindset, it's important to learn from others, but everyone has their own situation. And as the saying goes, listen to the gut instinct. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Prime Life podcast. It was great to have a conversation with you, Virginia and Brittney, and we'll continue this series over the next several months and keep the conversation going, but maybe tweak it a little bit. And to our listeners, we thank you for tuning in every week. Tell your friends, your family, your colleagues about the Prime Life podcast. Until next time, everyone have a great day. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.